So, yes, hello. So, hello. So, yes, today's stream will be about the authentication and just the overview of the authentication. So, yes, I was recently working on a backend, multiple backend projects where I am like handling the authentication and the very full workflow of the authentication. So I have learned this multiple things. So I was like, why not share this on YouTube? Also, just for myself, like how would I explain this concept and all. So that's why I'm doing this stream. So today we will cover just a basic overview about how we handle in 2025 or the recent age, how we handle the authentication. So as if you know, there are like types of authentication that we use in modern era. So these are like stateful and stateless authentication. These are two architectures of the authentication. So basically, let me explain you step by step. So basically, in stateful authentication, what happened is, for example, mm, let's say we have this architecture. So this is the stateful architecture where we have the client, where we have the server, where we build the backend business logic, and there is a database. So what happens in stateful authentication is when the client registers or logins, the request goes to server. Let's say for a login request goes to the server. So in stateful authentication, what we do is we create basically stateful as the name suggests. It stores uh, a, it stores a state of a client or the user if it is login or not. So basically, when the client hits a server, with the login request, we will generate a key or random key, you can say, which we will store in one copy in a database in a user schema or the authentication, however you wanna store it in database, and one copy of the exact same AP, like the key we have created, one we will send to the client. So basically, in stateful authentication, we are creating a key which one copy is storing in database and one copy is given to the client. So next time when the user or the client hits the protected routes like slash me slash edit or something, which are like protected that meant to be only accessible by the current like login user. So instead of on each request, instead of login, we will give a client a key with which he can access the protected routes. So when next time when the client hits the slash me page, then it will also require to give us the key which we have generated. So on the slash me route, we will check for the any protected route. We will check. We will first get the like key from the client, and also we will also get the stored key with the appropriate user and compare them both. If they both are similar, then we will proceed with the request. But if they are not similar, we will reject the request saying that user is unauthorized. So this is the basic stateful authentication architecture where we will store the the state of the current login user in database, and also one copy is given to the client. So whenever the client next time arrives, we will check the keys of both the client and the database which we have stored. So yes, this is the basic stateful architecture. This architecture is usually used in a if you want in a project the more security. This stateful authentication is more preferred, like the banking system or any other uh, high security platform. So you can use this stateful authentication. But there's a drawback with the stateful authentication that on each protected route request, you have to call the uh, extra call to database just to compare this API, just to compare these keys. So this is the drawback. So so the pro you can say is secure, like security. It has more security, like but the cons is it is I would say takes more time because on each request we are also calling a new call to the database just to compare the keys and more call on each request. So this is about the stateful authentication. So the also the modern way to handle the this authentication is the stateless architecture, where we will just similar to stateful authentication. Let me explain to you. Whenever the client hits the server with the login request, we will generate a key. But in this case, the key will be JWT token, which is recently like industry standard practice to use JWT. JWT token is nothing but the encrypted token which contains a payload headers and the signature, which we can uh, verify that you like using the key which we have used to encrypt this JWT token. So we can like basically JWT is basically used to uh, transfer data in encrypted fashion. So that is why JWT is. So whenever the client hits the server with the login request, we will create a JWT token where we will add its basic payload similar to user ID or the role, etc. In JWT token, we will encrypt that so that this role will only be decrypted or accessible who have encrypted it. So basically, it is now secure, somewhat secure. We will discuss its security in a minute. So now this JWT created token will be transferred or in response given to the client. It is not stored in a database, as the name suggests. It is stateless. So we will maintain state in client side. So whenever the next time the client hits the protected route, the it should always provide us the JW token. So we will on each request we will decrypt the or verify the JWT token and extract this payload so that we know this user is authenticated and verified. So with that, we don't have to store the tokens in database, and it is fast compared to the stateful authentication because we don't require the extra API call to a database just to check the API keys. So this is the stateless architecture of authentication. So pro of this architecture would be fast and I would say just fast. But the cons could be like less secure compared to stateful. It is less secure compared to stateful authentication architecture because there are ways to, if the JWT token is only stored in client and you don't have copy or compare to it, so it is possible that the attacker or the client could manipulate this JWT token or extract some uh, useful information from this payload or inject new payload inside this JWT token and get the unauthorized access to the user. So this could be like security failure or the cons of this stateless architecture. So yes, this is about it. And also one more point is this. The one more thing that the name suggests is the stateful, where we can, in stateful architecture, we can manage the state of the client authentication from the backend. For example, let's say our client is logged in, so in also database, they both have their API keys, but in backend as a developer, we we like come across the malicious or like doubtful activities by the client, so we can restrict or law restrict the uh, you like client from accessing our protected routes by just deleting the key record from the database. So this from the stateful architecture we can manage the access if the client is allowed to access the protected routes or not, even if they have the keys. But in stateless architecture, once we have given the JWT token to the client, until it get expired, we cannot like restrict the client from accessing the database or the protected routes. That's why the common practice while creating a JWT token is we give the JWT token expiry date, so it depends on security of your platform. For example, we can give expiry date of JWT to 5 minutes or 10 minutes or 1 hour, depending on your security workflow. So let's say we have given the JWT expiry of 5 minutes. So after 5 minutes, the JWT token will be invalid. So after 5 minutes, user have to log in or get a find a way to get a new JWT token by authorizing with the email or password. So this is the basic differences between stateful and stateless authentication architectures. So these are the like basics architecture. If you are developing a basic hobby projects or similar to that, you can use this architecture, authentication architecture in your projects. But the next step is, uh, let me type it here, access token and refresh token architecture. So the next step is the combination of stateful and stateless authentic architecture is access token and refresh token architecture, where we will combine these both stateful and stateless architecture to create this unique and more robust authentication architecture, where we For example, let's learn it from the basics. So while to implement this architecture, while creating a schema or the models, we will in a user schema or wherever you want to like track the authentication, we will create a access token and refresh token fields in our database schema where we will track this both tokens. So whenever a user logs in, as I have written in this diagram, so this is the client. So whenever user logs in, whenever user gives a login request, it will the user will log in with the given uh, email or password. So after successful login, in the backend, we'll generate a access token and the refresh token, JWT. So they both can be JWT token, as I have said in the stateless authentication architecture. As I have explained now what is JWT. So you can create these both tokens at JWT and you can add the payload like the required payload like ID, email role or whatever you payload you want to add. But here access token should always be I would say JWT token. Access token will always be JWT and refresh token you can create JWT or you can also create like other tokens like using inbuilt node module like node crypto or random bytes or UUID anything. You can create a refresh token anything, but the JWT or the access token should be a JWT token. So whenever the user logs in, we will create an access token which or should be JWT and the refresh token which could be JWT or any other random token. And then we will give those tokens as a response to the client. So note here the access token which is like JWT token we will we will send in JSON format to the client, or you can say send the access token also in the cookies. But note that the refresh token would always send in a cookies format, not in the JSON format. And make sure the cookies are secure. You have given the options, cookie options as HTTP only, and the secure is true. So after the clients has received the access token and the refresh token, uh, the client can access the protected routes with the access token. And while we are creating the refresh token and the access token, we will, sorry about this mistake, that we will only create a refresh token field in our database. So while we creating the refresh token, we will update in the backend the token which we have created, right? And then we will send one copy to the client and one copy to the database of the refresh token, but not the access token. We will send access token only to client, not the database. So as you have noticed, this is kind of similar to stateful authentication and stateless authentication because we like as you have noticed the refresh token is we are creating is also going to the database and also going to the client. So you can say refresh token is like a stateful authentication, but we are also creating the access token, which we are only sending to the client, not the database. And this token is JWT. So you can say it is similar to the stateless authentication. So what I'm trying to say here is this access token and request token authentication architecture is combination of the stateful and the stateless authentication architecture. So as the client has got the access token also and the refresh token. So whenever next time like client want to access the protected routes, it can access it with the access token, which is the threadless, and JWT token, which is access token. So with that, client can access the protected routes like edit, CRUD operations, or slash me or slash about. This routes the clients can access with the access token, which is stateless and JWT token, right? But the catch over here is access token, which is JWT token, we will always give